All right, to sum it up regarding this COVID-19 thing, I think it's pretty much a scam. It may have been about the same on average, as many deaths as the regular flu. It may be easier to obtain this virus than others on average, but it doesn't really do much to the average person who is healthy, from what I see. So, this all these mask wearing and the quarantining and these governors of the states of the United States, some of these governors, a lot of these governors, it seems, have went way overboard and have thought here is the time to see if we can boss people around and control them. These governors were elected by the people. And yes, 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 I don't know how to say it otherwise, or I mean, I want to say it factually and straightforward, and I'm not sure how to say this otherwise. There are a lot of stupid people that go along with this nonsense. It seems they're, maybe they're not stupid. Maybe they're just um, they're not able to see, they're not able to think for themselves or something. Because it's like they need a leader or somebody to direct them around, and they just can't be. They have to be like slaves. These leaders, so quote unquote leaders. I mean, they're no better. I mean, I could do a better job than the governor of Michigan myself, and for sure. And and same as New York, and same as New Jersey, and same as California. It's all a joke. And I personally don't really have any interest in being a dictator or anything like that. I would just do the job because if people asked me to do it, I would do it. But I don't really, not that I really want to be in that position anyway. But I sure can hell could do a lot better job than they're doing. So it's a joke. We originally went along with. This is what I did. I went along with this thing. I figured, well, I don't see a lot of people dying at the beginning. I went along and said, I thought to myself, there's not a lot of people dying. There seems to be a lot of people worrying and spreading. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the grocery store and stock up on some things. I was thinking, just in case people buy everything up, so I don't have anything to eat. So, so I went to the grocery, and you know, and and a lot of the population, I think, went along with what was going on just because they figured, well, we'll give it a, it could be. So, well, I'm not gonna be against it, fight against it right now. But now, as time has went on, it has proven to be um, not severe, and these governors are having a hard time giving up their power. That I hope they realize that people only went along with it is because they were. I was reserved in giving them, you might say, their influence. I didn't really like it, but I was like, we'll go along with it. We'll see what happens, and if it turns out it's nonsense, I think they need to stop it, and they need to stop it. So, a concern of mine though is that if there ever is another one that's real, a lot of people may not even um, they may not even be concerned about it. They might not even follow anything that they should follow, and um, they might rush to the grocery store and stock up on things But if it's like I said, if it's a real bad one, you don't want to go anywhere and have any contact with people that are moving around. Because if it's a bad one, you need to quarantine quick. No shopping, nothing. Don't go anywhere. Because if people are turning spots all over their bodies and foam coming out of the mouth and bleeding from the eyeballs and stuff like that, it's not time to go to the grocery store and stock up. So, and people might just blow it off if there is something. But one thing I am saying, one thing I like to say though, is that they're probably going to try to push some vaccination regarding COVID-19. Um, a lot of people cannot take a vaccination. Uh, I mean, they get sick. They get much sicker than if they probably didn't have the vaccination. So they're going to have people that are not going to go along with it if they try to force it. And on top of that, no one I think there's a law where they cannot force a vaccination, and that's good. But if they ever try to say, "Oh, you got to get it," you know what? They're going to be getting shot by some people if their people are trying to force a vaccination. They're going to get shot. They're going to be I don't know. Someone's going to stab the people who are trying to force the vaccination. It's not going to happen. So, and as far as I'm concerned, I think the law should stay there, and there should be no forced vaccinations. If you want to take the dumb thing, which probably will make you sick, go ahead and take it. If you think it's going to protect you, then you're protected, right? If you believe in vaccinations, take all the damn vaccinations you want. Therefore, you're protected. And other people, they can worry about it or not worry about it. If they die, they die. If they don't, they don't. Anyway, that's what I had to say, and I'm pretty much putting an end to this COVID-19 BS. And I'm tired of all these people. We go to work so you can stay home and be safe. You know what? You're a pathetic fuck up. Pardon my language. I'm sorry. I had to say that. I don't want to. Those people are just stupid. If they're still pushing that. If you're sick, you can't handle a damn thing. You stay home. What I mean by this, if a person is so bad off that they can catch a little thing like a flu and then die, well, then they should stay home. They're practically dead already before they catch it, and then the COVID-19 or the regular flu or a mosquito bite kills them. You know what I'm saying? Or a bee sting. Ooh, now he's dead. He died from a bee sting. And it caused a lot more harm than what all this quarantining and shutting down of businesses and et cetera has caused a lot more harm for a lot of people than especially for the economy, than it caused good. Now, as you know, probably a lot of people didn't mind having some time off if they had the time off, because it was probably helpful to them in some ways. But at the same time, if you're going to have a country go into trillions more in debt, and they're going to that much closer to the dollar, who knows what? I mean, I can't say what's going to happen to the U.S. dollar. It's not good. It's not good, but it may not be as whatever will happen. Whether there's a replacement of the dollar or whatever, depending who's in the White House, I think will determine to an extent, probably a great extent, how bad it is. Because, I mean, there's this guy named Bob Chapman from a while back, and he stated one time, he said, he was a guy who called in, and you can find his some of his interviews on the internet, but he stated something like, maybe sometime there'll be a debt settlement or something like that, and I think that's one thing he had stated. And also, if you have the money, if you have the dollar, that you just they'll give you one new U.S. dollar for 3 or 4 old ones, which means that you'll the prices of the products would go down to the price of the new dollar. And for example, instead of a gallon of milk costing $4, it would now cost $1 of the new dollar. You see, you give 3 or 4 of the old dollars in exchange for one new dollar. The problem is, I don't know if if a person has a couple $100,000 in investments, that would probably be reduced by one. It'd be brought down to maybe 50,000 in investments, but it would still hold its buying power. But during the time when it is inflating and being ruined, when the dollar is losing value, that's the time when the person really gets hammered with his investments if he doesn't keep up with the inflation. So I say, I'm not against, but there has to be some kind of law put in place that the national government cannot borrow money. They cannot go in debt for anything, including war. It's not necessary. Things can be adjusted so that in a war, that natural manufacturing, etc., can be adjusted so that and resources can be adjusted so that a war can be fought without borrowing money or creating money out of nowhere, and not back, which would cause debt. Any creation of money which causes debt should be banned. It should be illegal for the national government of the United States. Now, I don't have a problem with if there's any debts the United States has, a national debt. This is debatable, but my viewpoint, this may not be right, but a bond, a U.S. savings bond, for example, is a promise to pay, and people, it's not a guarantee that the person's going to pay. Just like a company, when you buy a share of a stock from a company, if the company goes out of business, you lose all your money. But if it stays in business and makes profit, you make money. In a bond, if a company goes out of business, if a U.S. savings bond, if the country doesn't pay it, well, then they just don't pay it. This isn't maybe the best. I think a government should fulfill its obligations, but what they're doing now is insane. And it'll just it's kind of like a necessity to get rid of the debt. And so all I can really say is, at the most, if you're an American citizen, I don't think they should necessarily wipe. I don't think they should necessarily say that we are not going to pay your U.S. savings bonds. But anyone who's not a U.S. citizen, in the security of the United States of America, very well should not be paid. They should be defaulted on. But before this is done, well, actually, as far as I'm concerned, they should just freeze all the accounts so no one can sell anything, and then put in the requirement that there can be no debt by the national government under any circumstances, and then default on the debt owed to foreigners, including governments, foreign governments, and then the American citizens who actually have bought U.S. savings bonds and are part in their investments and stuff like that. They should be given one new one for 3 or 4 old ones, and we can probably pay back a couple $1 trillion over time. And the interest rate should be brought down, and so they would like to sell their bonds so they can get out of them. And then there'll be no more U.S. savings bonds or any other types of U.S. savings debt sold by the United States government. Get out of it, all of it entirely. That's what I have to say.